Hello and welcome to Instant Archery Advice. Helpful archery advice in under 5 minutes. Recurve limb bolts. Apart from changing the draw weight of the bow, what do they do to the feeling of the bow? And most importantly, which position scores the most? And if you like these videos, please subscribe. There's going to be many more in the series. So I'm talking about the difference between shooting a bow with the limb bolts wound all the way in and shooting a bow with the limb bolts wound out. Now I'm going to give you the demonstration here on this intermediate Hoyt bow because the limb pocket is cut away so you can see the limb bolt, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. If we take me as an example, I used to shoot with 53 pounds on my fingers at full draw, and I can achieve this weight in a couple of ways. One way would be to have some 46-pound limbs fully wound out, which on a Hoyt bow is 6 turns from bottom. So the bottom is when the limb bolt has gone in all the way, like now. And then I take it 6 turns out, and that is the minimum weight setting. So I can have 46-pound limbs in this setting to give me my 53 pounds, or I can achieve exactly the same 53 pounds with 42-pound limbs with the limb bolts wound in. So from a scientific point of view, they weigh exactly the same at full draw. But from a feeling point of view, they're totally different. If you give these to an athlete to draw up and they have their eyes closed, there's no way they can confuse the bows. They are totally different. Even though we have the same make, the same model, the limbs will feel totally different. Typically speaking, the heavier limbs wound out will feel softer and smoother to draw, and the lighter limbs wound in will feel more aggressive at the beginning and harder to draw. Now I know that doesn't make sense. From a scientific point of view, they both weigh exactly 53 pounds at full draw, but the feeling is totally different. If you give these to an athlete and you ask them to draw both and tell you what they think the weight is, they nearly always tell you that the heavy limbs wound out are 1 or maybe 2 pounds lighter than the other limbs. And it's not true. They weigh exactly the same, but the feeling is totally different. From my experience, when you go to an international world-class event, 90% of the athletes there shoot with their limb bolts wound out. It's very rare I come across a high-performing athlete who prefers the feeling of a bow with the limbs wound in. Remember, we're not talking about the draw weight, we're just talking about the position of the limb bolt to give a feeling, because these athletes have limbs they can change. And in my whole 20 years, I only had one teammate ever who loved the feeling of those limbs being wound in, and he liked the fact it gives him just a little bit more speed. But he came from a field archery background, so maybe that was because they have unmarked rounds and maybe the speed is more important to him, and he got used to that feeling. But honestly, 9 out of 10 times, you will see top archers shooting with their limb bolts wound out. So what does that mean for you? If you have a choice of limbs and you know what your ideal holding weight is, try and get the heaviest limb possible to achieve that holding weight. So you shoot with your bow in the minimum position, because I find it much more forgiving. And that's why generally people shoot this way. And by forgiving, we mean when we make a mistake, the arrow goes closer to the middle. So instead of that arrow being a 7, it's an 8. Instead of being an 8, it's a 9. If you do perfect shots, you can shoot whatever bow you want. Forgiveness and tuning and technique, all of these things only matter when you make mistakes. And believe me, we all make mistakes. So also it might mean you're happy with your setup, you're happy with your holding weight, but your limbs are fully wound in. It could be you're not really getting quite as good a score as you could, and even though you think your equipment is finished, maybe you should try some heavier limbs. Often you can go up not just 2 pounds, often if your limbs are fully in, you can go up 4 pounds, wind those limb bolts all the way out, and hopefully you'll get to the same holding weight. It might be a fraction more, but it wouldn't surprise me if it feels easier. Okay, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. And if you've liked the video, please subscribe. And if anyone is looking for some one-to-one online coaching, the details are also in the comments. Okay, good shooting.